If you're in a business, you need to make sure things are secure. It's not something that should be taken lightly. We do need patches, alerts, antivirus, email security, dark web monitoring, and your device updates and multi-factor authentication. What does a base level of cybersecurity look like? Nowadays, the risk is real for every business, whether it's a small business or a large enterprise. Large enterprises have been in this space a lot longer, so they're more experienced. They have a lot more tools and a lot more awareness of what's going out in the landscape when it comes to security and cybersecurity. As a sort of small to medium-sized business, we don't need the enterprise level of security. You could maybe do like a sort of like product-based purchase of a few products, and that will give you a base level. But realistically, when it's a business and you need looked after, you need a managed services provider, then the base thing for me is having a company that's remotely monitoring your systems. You can actually have what's known as SOC, SOC, Security Operations Center, and that's tends to be a subscription-based product where you actually have a 24/7 monitor, so that's human beings actually connected into all your systems remotely and monitoring everything. If I was to look on the screen here, I've got the our version of remote machine management, quite topically titled RMM, Remote Machine Management. That's the product. You can look at computers and you can do management of these computers, actually remote controlling the computer, but more importantly, you can actually go into the what we would term as the back end of the computer. So the person who's using the computer doesn't actually need interrupted. I've just got on screen here, this is what we would call a command line. It allows our team to actually remotely create and manage tasks and do technical things in the background without the end person that's using the computer ever get interrupted. The thing with remote machine management as well is there's a lot of automated things that happen in the background. If a managed services provider has set their remote machine management system up right, it will do proactive and reactive fixes. Things like if disks are running out of space, it can actually set off certain automated tasks, and you can open and close jobs based on this. So that's more about infrastructure rather than cybersecurity, is where we want to get back to. A lot of businesses will have Microsoft 365. Some may use Google Workspace, but we're going to speak about this from a Microsoft 365 perspective. Once you've got your kind of remote machine management or remote management set up and working, the other things you need to look at are, the real basics. Antivirus. Have you got email security? So that's a system that's scanning your email. Microsoft, when you buy their Microsoft 365 platform, it has email in it, but it's got a very basic level of security. You've got to make sure and buy some of the products out of the Microsoft 365 Defender suite. Within Microsoft 365, you have the Microsoft 365 Defender suite, security.microsoft.com. If you've got administrator access, you can actually go and see that. One of the real benefits to that is you get a secure score. So Microsoft actually benchmark you against other businesses of your size and let you know. And I've mentioned it in many other of my videos that you can actually see your score and benchmark yourself against somebody else. And an enterprise, a really large business, requires a higher level of security. So you might want a secure score of like upwards of 70 to 80%, but that might be too restrictive for a small to medium-sized business. And typically, like for example, a medium-sized business with 20 people, the secure score that is acceptable is about 40%. So if you're above that by say 5 or 10%, then that's a really good place to be. I'm just looking at the secure score for this tenant, and it's got a secure score of 50.27%, which is great. But what happens if you want to go to a more secure level? Then just follow all the guidance within Microsoft 365's Defender suite. You can actually look at actions to review, and that's really handy. I'm just putting that on screen just now to let you see, there are There are actions, so and it actually gives you a score impact as well. So this one here, turning on real-time protection for Microsoft 365, that'll increase your score by 0.85%, which is quite a lot really. So being aware of your security, if you're running Microsoft 365, you can just go to security.microsoft.com and immediately it'll give you an idea of your score. If you're below the average for your business size, I would strongly advise trying to follow the guidance or engaging with a managed services provider. If you go with Microsoft 365 Business Premium licenses, that's going to give you a base level of products you can use, but not a base level of security. You then have to configure the products after that. Business Premium will give you email security. There's also things like dark web monitoring. Have your credentials been compromised in any way? Have you inputted your password into a system and you don't know about it? Or, you see these things in the past where, larger companies have held a lot of data and they've had a breach. Do you know if your details have been breached in that? Is the password that you've used on, I don't know, for instance, British Airways website, is that password that you've used, have you repeatedly used that password on other systems? If a database has been leaked onto the dark web, then you want to know about it. And dark web scanning, even with the most basic password manager these days, password managers like LastPass, they'll actually give you a health check on your email address and your passwords to say, were you aware that this password has been leaked on the dark web? With a managed services provider, you have dedicated products that aren't just part of a smaller product, and products like ID Web will actually monitor every email address that you've got. It'll also monitor your supply chain, so people that supply to you. So if you get an email alerting you one of your main suppliers has had a breach, you can be a little bit more vigilant about those emails, and maybe one of your suppliers has sent you an invoice that looks a little bit different. If you've got dark web monitoring in place, then you're going to be alerted to that as well, which is so handy. One thing that people tend to forget about in a base level of security is all their equipment, their networking equipment. So you've got your router, your switches, your firewall, all these things. There needs to be some kind of base level to that. If you use like the free gap analysis checklist on the IASME website, which is a Cyber Essentials checklist or a gap analysis, it'll give you some guidance and help on that. One of the things it speaks about is, have you changed your router or your switches away from the default usernames and passwords? And quite often people haven't done that. A few years ago, there was a vulnerability with one of the brands, I think it was Draytech, where hackers were able to easily access a firewall from external to your business. And what needs updated there is the firmware needs updated. Now firmware, what's firmware? Well, that's the operating system that every piece of electrical equipment has in order for it to work. That can actually have vulnerabilities, so manufacturers update that. I'm sounding like a little bit of a broken record. Multi-factor authentication. That is like the most base level of security you can do for your business. Make sure you've got that second layer. You've got your password, you've then got your prompt for either your 6-digit code, a fingerprint, Windows Hello, anything like that. So, or Microsoft Authenticator or any kind of authenticator. Make sure you've got multi-factor authentication. If a system won't offer multi-factor authentication, I would question whether it's secure enough to use. Your domain name for your email addresses. Now there's a lot of information when you send an email gets sent with an email that you don't see and I don't see. There's things like the SPF record, the DKIM and DMARC record, and these are sort of like what I would term as hidden codes that are in the code of an email to let the receiving email system know, hey, this is safe. It's kind of like the DKIM and DMARC are kind of like a credit check for your domain name for emailing. If you want to make sure that your emails are going to be delivered, not just to a client, but to their inbox, then making sure these things are set up, your SPF record, your DKM and your DMARC record. And they're very simple to do. I would definitely recommend that those are definitely in the base level of security. The remote machine management is really there to make sure that all your systems are patched and up to date. So that's all your software and your hardware. So patching and security updates are really important. Alerts are so important as well, so you need to know if there's any problems. Antivirus is definitely a base level, and you can get various different levels of that. Email security, another thing that's so important. You know, a high percentage of hacks happen through email, so making sure you've got good email security is really important. Getting back to alerts, dark web monitoring, that's part of alerting as well. Making sure that your credentials haven't been compromised online, and if they have, you know, so you can do something about it. Again, updates, network and device updates, just make sure that network and device updates are done. For the person using the computer, it's just multi-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication. That's the key for me there, is just making sure that you've got that secure, making it difficult for somebody to crack into your systems. And a lot of systems now offer it by default, but a lot don't.